We're at Eagle Ridge Academy in Brighton, Colorado, where we're talking with this high school's principal, Mr. Ben Ploeger. Ben studied mechanical engineering as an undergraduate and now runs this school. We'd like to hear a little bit more about how you went from being a mechanical engineer to becoming a principal.
So engineering is something that I've always had a passion for, and from the time I was a little kid. Just loved building things and creating things and designing things and figuring stuff out. So that led me to start an engineering program. And midway through my junior year, I had an internship as an engineer. And after 3 months of designing printer doors and economizing wiring harnesses for kiosks, I realized that while I was passionate about engineering, the idea of working as an engineer wasn't the best fit for me. That said, I knew that having an engineering degree was something that would only open doors for me in the future, and I made a very deliberate decision to finish that, and knowing that once I had that under my belt, I had plenty of time to figure out who I was.
You said you wanted to be an engineer since you were 4. How did you know that?
I love building things, and I love creating things, and I love problem solving. So I was guided by my family and teachers to be an engineer, because those are things that engineers do. So from the very young age, whether I was making a helicopter with constructs or fixing the dishwasher in my dad's car, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I thought I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Tell us a little more about the transition from engineering to education. Did you need to get more school? How did you figure that process out?
With an engineering degree, I had a very firm grasp of content knowledge. I was a high school math teacher, and engineers can do high school math. Doing high school math and teaching high school math are two very different things. And I didn't have the skill set to really be a good teacher. So I actually received quite a bit of training before I taught internationally. And then when I came back, I earned a Master's of Arts in Teaching for secondary math instruction, and then a couple other masters in educational leadership while I was teaching and working as a vice principal.
And what was your first job out of college, and how did you go about getting it?
First job I had out of college was the same job I had as I was finishing college, and that was at Marlowe's downtown, which you may know, it's at 16th and Glenarm. There I waited tables and bartended and managed and loved it, and I kept that job when I graduated, and I got that by walking in and applying.
How do you use what you learned studying mechanical engineering in your current role?
One of the most difficult things for me when I started engineering school was the concept of an open-ended problem. You know, as a high school student, you've got these multiple choice tests, and you get a paper back that says you have an A, B, or C. When I was doing my engineering degree, we start off with a design project, and it's just a problem that you have to solve, and there's no right answer, and there's no concept of what you actually have to do to pass the class. That was really hard for me. And also, that's real life. And so from the very get-go, as I was learning to be an engineer, I was really being prepared for the challenges that I would face in the years ahead, because it's not A, B, C, or D. It's here's a problem without a clear solution, and the best one also might not be good, but find it.
What about your current job didn't exist when you were a student in engineering?
Charter schools didn't come into existence until 1992, and it took about 10 years for them to really go out on a broader scale. One of the things that's different about charter schools is they're governed independently from the local school district. So it's just a different governance structure. Instead of just really being responsible for instruction, in the charter school, we're also responsible for finance and for operations, and those are very different. The way that you work towards success in the classroom and the way you make sure that you can make payroll and your ventilation system's working and you don't have prairie dogs threatening to get your students sick, those are very different skill sets. And at the time I was in engineering school, the concept of having to do all that in a K-12 setting just wasn't really a big thing. And in my mind, the concept of me leading school wasn't a thing, because I was going to be an engineer.
Ben, how do you use math in your job?
A big component of my job is working with data, whether that is student achievement data, whether that is data about the greater political context, or a budget. And frankly, with some of the challenges that we've faced in this school, a lot of the problem solving I've had to do has been financial. And math required to be an engineer is very good preparation for the math required to lead an organization with a multi-million-dollar budget.
What's the coolest thing you get to do in your job?
So we have a really awesome group of students here at this school, and whether it is a basketball game or a homecoming dance or the Relay for Life or any of the numerous service activities they do, they're always doing something cool. It's hard for me to keep up with all of the different spirit days we have. Sometimes I don't know if I'm supposed to wear my beard wig or just a red shirt. We have a lot of fun.
So it sounds like you must do a lot of collaboration to make all of these things happen and manage this entire school. Can you tell us about some of the people you collaborate with?
As far as faculty here go, collaboration is the biggest part of what we do. So the way we have our schedule built for the daily flow, each department either has a common planning period or a common lunch period. So everyone gets to meet together and talk through whatever the issue or situation or plan happens to be. And then on a broader scale, once a month we have what's called the hybrid day, and I can explain more about that, but that's really one of the benefits of that is we're able to meet all morning and just collaborate, work together, and focus on what we need to do to make things better for kids. On a broader scale, public schools are government entities. So that means that we are accountable to the public, we're accountable for tax dollars, we're accountable for student achievement, we're accountable for safety, and so that means collaborating with our stakeholders, parents, the community, the district. So while we're a charter school, we have a very strong partnership with our district, and we collaborate quite a bit with them. Local businesses, schools don't exist in vacuums, and the reality is we're trying to prepare students for careers that don't even exist yet, and you can't do that when you don't have strong partnerships with those in industry.
You mentioned hybrid days. Can you tell us some more about that?
Hybrid days are really cool. So a reality of going to college in this day and age is that there's going to be some sort of online instruction, whether that's part of a class or a whole
class.
A class. But at some point in college, students are going to have to do something online. For many individuals, that is second nature and it's smooth and maybe even preferred. For others, that is just hard to wrap your mind around and uncomfortable and not fun. So one of the things that we do to really prepare our students for that is once a month their instruction is online. And so in each of their 7 classes, teachers put together a lesson that should take 40 to 50 minutes for each student to complete, and those students then do those lessons online, so they can stay at home and log in, they can go to McDonald's or Starbucks or somewhere with a wireless connection. If they don't have a computer, they can come here and use our computer labs because we keep our building open. But what that does is gives them a full school day online where they're learning how to do that so they can be successful in college. That also gives us a whole day where teachers can meet together as a team, and we can go through and plan and look at achievement data and look at curriculum and really figure out what it is we need to do so that we're better at what we're working for.
Ben, can you tell us about a time in your career or your education when you weren't successful at something?
I didn't know if I was actually going to graduate with my bachelor's until I crossed the stage and stopped and opened up my diploma sleeve. At the school where I did my engineering degree, they actually gave you your diploma at graduation as you were crossing the stage.
Okay.
And if you did not necessarily meet the graduation requirements, they would just pull the diploma the night before. And so there with your friends and family in attendance, they would just hand you the diploma holder. And generally you didn't look at it till you got off stage. So in my situation, my final semester, I was taking 21 credits. I was working 45 hours a week, trying to do everything I could.
That is not advisable, 45 hours of work.
Don't do that. But I was trying to do everything I could to hold it together, and I took a class called Feedback Control Systems, which really makes sense to some people. And I struggled with it, and at the very end, I did not know if I had a D or an F. And while I have always strived to have the highest GPA possible, at that point, D was for diploma. The only thing was that my professor was conspicuously absent the 3 days leading up to graduation, and I couldn't find him to find out if I actually had passed. It wasn't until the very moment that I crossed the stage and stopped the process of graduation so I could look and see if I had a diploma that I knew I'd actually made it.
What was your favorite experience as an engineering student?
I struggled as an engineering student. I'm an extrovert, and one of the things that was tough for me as an engineering student was that I found a lot of my peers didn't necessarily share that. I wanted to talk about things and collaborate and share ideas, and I felt like a lot of my peers would actually much prefer to go to their cubicle and not be bothered by someone with conversation. That was really tough for me. I think the thing I enjoyed most was my time when I was engaged in something that wasn't directly related to engineering, to be quite frank. As I was working through my engineering process, I knew that I loved engineering, and I knew that having an engineering degree would knock down doors for me, regardless of what I chose to do.
What role do you think K-12 systems should play in offering engineering and computer science?
So if you look at what's happening in industry right now, 7 of the 10 biggest growing fields are in engineering. And when you look at the problems of the future that we don't know exist yet, those are solved by engineers. And I think part of the duty of the K-12 education system is to teach people how to learn, and to teach people how to be flexible, and to teach people how to collaboratively problem solve. And I think that with those skills there, the skill set of an engineer is really the next step.
Do you think engineering students or students who graduate with an engineering degree will make good teachers?
I think that engineers make great teachers. A couple reasons. One, they're generally good at math, and 2, they're very analytical.
I want to talk a little bit more about your career trajectory. You said that after your first job you went into the Peace Corps.
It was something I'd wanted to do for a long time. I really wanted the experience of living in and adjusting to a culture that was not my own. I knew I had something to offer. I didn't know what it was necessarily. Peace Corps decided that because I had an engineering degree, it was teaching math and science. So that's what I did. I've always really loved people and human systems, and so it just seemed like a very natural thing to go where I could learn about people and human systems.
And then after the Peace Corps, you found your way into education. Can you take us through that process a little bit?
So I taught for a couple years in the Peace Corps and absolutely loved what I was doing. Found that the problem solving that I learned as an engineer was really applicable to solving problems in human systems. And it was just such a natural transition for the analytical side of my mind and my reality that I'm an extrovert and I'm a people person. It was just such a natural fit. It still took me a little while to figure out what I needed to do. So I moved to Breckenridge and spent a season there. And as that season carried on and I was figuring out what I was going to do next, I realized that I wanted to be in education. Also, I had the content knowledge to do it, but I just really wasn't certified and wasn't licensed. And so I went looking for graduate programs so that I could make that transition, and ultimately ended up starting a master's degree in New Orleans.
And you were teaching in New Orleans?
I started teaching high school math in New Orleans. I taught there for a couple years and then moved into administration there.
I hear in your career path a real passion for social justice. Do you have any advice for other engineering students who share that passion?
So engineering students who share that passion have the ability to understand really complex systems and make sense of them in very straightforward ways. And when we're looking at our society and when we're looking at the challenges in our society, those are complex. Those are not simple. Those are not a vote one way or another on a ballot. It's not that clean. It's messy. And what I would say to an engineering student with that passion is finish that engineering degree and figure out how you can apply that to some of these massively complex challenges that are out there on a broader scale.
What do you do for fun when you're not running this fabulous school?
Love to snowboard, love to ride my motorcycle, my wife. In my free time, I'm writing...
You probably don't have a lot as a principal.
I'm writing a dissertation. Yeah, those would be my main things at the moment.
So you mentioned that you are in a doctoral program. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're studying and why you chose to study it?
I'm in the Urban Education Leaders Program at Teachers College at Columbia University, and that is a preparation program for urban superintendents. So that's a program that's designed to prepare people to take on some of these broad challenges in an urban setting. And so that's been my focus.
And do you have a particular research topic that you're studying?
So my dissertation is about financial and operational systems for charter schools.
That sounds like engineering speak.
Yeah. So the thing is, since charter schools have been around, which has been about 20 years, about 15% of those that have ever come into existence have closed. Out of those that have closed, about 64% have done so because of either financial mismanagement or something like that, something not academic related. There's a lot of guidance out there for charter school leaders and charter school board members with regard to academics, but there's really not much out there for finance and operations, and principal preparation programs don't really teach principals how to run a organization with a large budget. You learn how to be an instructional leader, which is a big component, but if you don't have your money and if you don't have your operational systems right, you don't get to the academics.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our class?
I just appreciate the opportunity to share some of your time.
Thanks for yours.
You're welcome.